Hello guys, and welcome back to another tutorial. If this is your first time joining us, please subscribe and let's get right into the video. So today we are going to be making this bow top, and this is going to be a beginner's project. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, let's get right into the video. So here I already ruled my lines and I'm just going to label them so you know what we're doing. This is my bust point, my under bust point, and this is going to be serving as the full length of our top. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to input our nipple to nipple measurement. For me, that is 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So I'm just going to be marking 3.5 on my bust point and my under bust all the way down. So I'm just going to mark that out and I'm going to rule it. So this is marked as a full length top, but we are not going to be working with this, so we are just going to mark that out because this is going to be a sleeveless top. We are just going to mark that out, and for me I'm going to be working with 7, so I'm just going to mark 7 across. So this is going to be serve as our chest line, and this is where our top is going to start from. So I'm just going to rule that out. So now this is going to serve as our chest line, and I'm just going to label that. So now from this line we marked, I'm just going to take out 1.5. So I'm going to mark out 1/2 inch on the inner part and 1 inch on the outer part. So you can see that I've marked that out. So from the under bust, I'm going to be taking out 2 inch, and I'm just going to take out 1 inch on both sides like I just did. So now I'm just ruling this to meet with the bust point. As you can see, I'm ruling this to meet with the bust point. So I'm going to do the same thing for the 1 inch I took at the outer part, and as well as the one I took on the under bust. So I'm just going to mark out the dots as you see me doing right now. So I'm just trying to eliminate the hash lines and create curves at that point because our patterns are not supposed to have any hash lines. And now I'm extending the 2 inch I took all the way down. So I'm just taking the dot all the way down. After we're done with that, this is what we have. Next, I'm going to go ahead to start adding in my measurements. I'm going to add in my bust measurement divided by 4, and I'm going to mark that out, as well as my under bust and my waist measurement divided by 4. So you can see that I'm just going to mark that out. Now I'm going to return the 2 inch that we took there because it's not, our measurement is not going to be correct if we just leave it as it is. So I'm returning back the that I took in, the 2 inch dart, and then I'm going ahead to add in 1.5 sewing allowance. So I'm doing the same thing for the top as well. So I'm just adding in my sewing allowance, and when I'm done I'm going to rule this out. So you can see that I'm trying to rule this out all the way up. So for this part, if we are to bend it the way you're seeing this, it's going to look really shapeless. So I'm just going to add in one inch just to make sure that our measurement and the shape of our pattern is looking okay. Now I'm going to add my across front measurement, which is 12 divided by 2 is 6, and I'm going to mark that out. And I'm going to return the 1.5 inches we had there, and I'm going to add it there. So our measurement is going to be equal and everything is on track. So now from this point, I'm going to be slanting down for our armhole, and I'm going to go down by 1/2 inch and create a curve for our armhole. This is because this is going to be a strapless top, and since there's no strap, there's no sleeve, we want it to look okay at the armhole area. So I just went in like this and I attached it back to our line we drew earlier. So this is what it's looking like. We are going to go ahead to draft the back part. So this is for the back part, and you can see that I already took 1.5 inches, and this is going to serve as our sewing allowance. So I'm just going to mark that out. So now our measurement is going to start outside of the sewing allowance, which is this part you see right now. Now I'm just going to mark 3.5, my nipple to nipple as well. This is going to serve as where our back dart is going to sit. So I'm just going to roll this out. So next I'm going to be taking in the dart, and I'm going to take 1/2 inch on both sides, and I'm going to be drawing this as a diamond dart at the back. But when I'm done drafting, I'm going to be cutting it straight out. I'm not going to be taking note of this shape because I personally prefer to make use of a straight dart at the back of the back of whatever I'm making. So now I'm just putting in my bust measurement divided by 4, my under bust measurement divided by 4, and my waist measurement divided by 4, and I'm just going to add that, and I'm going to add 1.5 inch sewing allowance, as well as returning the 1 inch we took at the center. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to mark it out and just trace out all my lines to meet each other. I'm going to cover out this part because I do not want any sharp lines, so I'm just going to curve that out. And here I'm going to put my across front measurement, and this is basically the measurement from the front part of your chest. You're just going to take that measurement at the top part to get your across front, and I'm just going to draw this down the way we did for the front. So this is what we are working with so far. And now I'm just going to add this zipper part. I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch to create a slant at that part because our body is not straight at that part. So we are just going to do this to make sure that our zip doesn't bulge at the back. So I'm going to take it in, and I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch on this part as well, and I'm going to just draw the line to meet with the other parts the way I'm doing right now. I hope you understand. So I'm just going to rule the line. So this is now our new zipper allowance. So I'm going to cancel out this part. This part we are no longer going to be working with it, but we are going to be working with the line inside. I hope you understand. So now I'm going to go ahead to cut these patterns out. I'm going to cut everything out. I'm also going to be marking out my patterns to know where the top part is, the front part, the center front, the side front, and all. So I'm just going to mark that out, so when I transfer it to the fabric, I know what part I'm supposed to join to which part. So I'm going to cut this out, and then we are going to transfer our pattern to our fabric. So this is what we are going to be working with. This is actually a Milkado fabric, and this is what we are going to be working with for this tutorial, and this is our lining that we are going to be working with. So we are going to go ahead to transfer the patterns, and you can see that I went ahead to cut this out, and I left 1/2 inch sewing allowance at the sides that are needed. You can see that I took 1/2 inch sewing allowance all around. So now this is what we have. I went ahead to iron interfacing on all the fabrics except for the lining, of course. So I'm going to just join the back piece first. Now I'm just going to pin this down and take it to my sewing machine to sew by 1/2 inch all the way down. So I'm going to do this for the 2 piece, and I'm going to sew them and give them a good press when I'm done sewing. So we are just going to sew by 1/2 inch like so. And for the front, I went ahead to take wording to just cut out the wording for our bust, where our bust is going to be sitting. I'm just going to cut this out and iron it to the fabric. So I'm doing this for the front as well. For the center piece rather, I'm cutting this out. You can choose to make use of a stronger one. I just prefer using this for this particular kind of top. So I'm just pinning this down so we can go ahead to sew this by 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to pin everything down and take it to the sewing machine and sew all the way by 1/2 inch. You can see what it's looking like right now. So I'm just going to pin this on both sides and sew on our machine. And when you're done sewing, make sure you notch the seams and give it a good press. So we're just going to do that right now. So like I said, we're going to sew like so by 1/2 inch and notch it. So this is what it's looking like after I was done sewing, and you can see that the cup is already standing very firm, and you can see on the inside that I made a notch on the inside, so everything relaxes well when you're ironing. So you can see I went ahead to iron it, and I also went ahead to put my body measurement divided by 2 and marking that out. So now I'm just going to bring in our back piece, and we're going to join the back piece and the front piece together. So I'm going to pin it down and sew with the measurements we have there. So I'm going to sew and do the same thing for the lining piece. You can see that I already went ahead to join the lining piece, so we are going to do the same thing for the lining as well. So this is what it was looking like after I was done joining the back and the front piece together. So I'm just going to bring in our lining piece, and your lining piece should be 1 inch shorter than the main fabric. So if your main fabric is 10 inches, your lining should be 9 inches. So that's just an example. So I'm just going to pin the lining to the main fabric. We're just going to pin this all the way so we can join it at the bottom. So I'm done pinning this down. I'm just going to sew by 1/2 inch, and I'm going to give it a top stitch on the lining part. You can see that I'm already done joining it, and I went ahead to top stitch on the lining part. This is totally optional. You can just go ahead to iron it. So after I was done with that, I'm just going to pin the lining at the top, right sides facing each other. I'm going to pin this at the top all the way around so we can join everything together. So I'm going to go ahead to pin this down, and we are going to sew. So after we're done pinning everything down, we're just going to sew from this point all the way around to the top by 1/4 inch. We are just going to sew, and we are going to end our sewing here where I marked out. This is because we are going to use this space we have at the bottom to turn our fabric to the right side. So this is what it was looking like after I was done sewing, and I'm just going to notch everything. I'm just going to notch it so when I turn it to the other side and give it a good press, everything is laying down flat and everything is looking nice. So I'm just going to notch that and flip it over to the right side from the opening we left. So this is what it's looking like after I was done flipping it over. So what you're going to do is just give everything a good press, and you should have something like this. This is what it's looking like. I went ahead to mark out where our zip is going to sit. So I'm just going to bring in our zip to fix our zip. So from the mark I made, I just placed the zip there and took my pin, and I'm just going to pin this down the way I want it to lay. And I'm going to pin it on the second side as well, the second part, as you see me doing right now. So after I'm done pinning this down, I'm just going to take it to the machine and sew. And this is very good for people who are still beginners and do not know how to fix their zip. This is going to make it very easy for them. So I'm just going to sew that. So for the bow part, I just took out the fabric, and this is what it's looking like. I'll have the figures on the screen. So I marked out 25 inches by 17 inches, and I just cut that out. And I actually cut 2 of these as well. So one is going to serve as a lining. So I cut out 2 of this. So this is what it's looking like. So I'm going to go ahead to bring in hard gum stay. That's what they call it here, and this is the hardest one because we want our bow to stand really firm. So I'm just going to iron that to one of the pieces, and the second piece will serve as the lining piece to that. So we are just going to place this on the gum stay, and we are going to cut this out. After we're done cutting this out, we're just going to iron it and place the lining piece on the ironed fabric, and we are going to sew by 1/4 inch. So this is what it's looking like after we're done. Please make sure you give it a very good press so it sticks to the fabric. So now I place the second fabric on it, the one that is serving as a lining piece, right sides facing each other. I'm just going to sew all the way around by 1/4 inch, and I'm going to leave an opening here this opening you see here, and we're going to sew. The opening is just to turn this to the right side, so I'm just going to sew that and turn it to the right side. So this is what it's looking like after I was done sewing, and I had to sew this down. The opening we had, I had to sew this down so just to seal it up. So this is what we have. So I went ahead to cut out this strip of fabric, and this is 11 inches by 6.5 inches. So this is just to this is going to serve as what we are going to use to hold our bow together. So I'm just going to hold it like so, and sew by half an inch. Give it turn it to the right side and give it a good press. So this is what we are going to use to hold our bow like so. So I'm just going to go ahead to sew this and bring it back. So I am done sewing it, and I gave it a good press. So I took the bow part and I just flip it to the other side to get the center point, and I marked out the center point. This is going to help us make sure that our ribbon part is sitting at the middle, at the midpoint. So I'm just going to start pleating this. I'm just going to pleat it to the very end, and I'm going to use a needle and a thread to secure it. So I'm just going to pleat this, and then I'm going to use the needle and thread to secure it like I'm doing right now. After that, I'm just tying this to make sure it stays in place. So after tying that, we are just going to bring the piece we ironed, and we are going to hold it together at the center like so, making sure everything is laying down properly. So I'm just going to mark the points that I'm going to sew, so I know where I'm sewing by, so it's not too wide. So I'm going to mark it on both sides, and I'm just going to sew at that point. So this is what it's looking like after I was done sewing. So this is what it's looking like, and we did this because we would not be able to pass it through the fabric, because the fabric is really hard and it doesn't stretch like the last video I made where I actually fixed it like a band through the bow. So this is what it's looking like. It's still okay. This is what it's looking like. And now we're just going to fix the bow to our dress, to our top. So I'm going to make sure it's in the middle of the dress, and I'm just going to tack it down from the center first. So this is what it's looking like. I'm now going to place this on the top, making sure it's at the center. When it's the way I want it to be, I'm just going to tack it from the inside, making sure that it's not going to show from the outside. So you're just going to tack it wherever you want and wherever you feel it should be tacked, and that is done. So we've come to the end of this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comment section below. Subscribe if you're not yet subscribed, and I'll see you on the next video.